All right, I got a theory, and it might just be the Cowboys' biggest X factor of 2025. We're talking new Cowboy coaching hires who bring in their former players from the former team who already know the scheme, the expectations, and the mission. It's Gavin, Dawson, of course, from 105.3 The Fans, GBag Nation, home of the Cowboys, 2 to 7 weekdays. Thanks for finding us on How About Wow. Since Wade Phillips left in 2010, the Cowboys have had 7 different defensive coordinators. The ones who could find what the Cowboys needed had success. Anybody who didn't have good candidates or was wrong about his former players, flat out disasters, okay? And the Cowboys have a lot of different coaches now, particularly on defense. And now with a new DC, Matt Eberflus, and defensive coordinator Aaron Whitecotton, it's linebacker Jack Sanborn and defensive lineman Solomon Thomas who provide us the perfect litmus test for that theory. So I'm going to show you my work here. Not spend a lot of time, but let me know what you think in the comments. And if you think I nailed it, maybe smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, maybe even the bell. Okay, but I don't want to get greedy. Hey, if you don't like the video, go ahead and give me that thumbs down because fair is fair. So what got me thinking on this is our buddy Nick Harris, friend of the program, doing a heck of a job at the Star Telegram. Of course, a lot of the talk is on the Cowboys stopping the run, and they didn't draft anybody to help that. Unless I guess you kind of look at day 3, but here he is, Sanborn with the ones on his former head coach Matt Eberflus's team now here with the Cowboys, and Flus stops the run. Okay, he trusts this guy. Matt Eberflus, Colts and Bears, has a reputation. They're going to take away the football. They are also going to take away the run. So the light bulb moment for me was, wow, is this really going to work? Is Sanborn going to be amazing? Broadus likes him, but how often has this worked for the Cowboys over the years? And when it did not work, what did that mean? Okay, when they didn't bring in anybody, it was ugly. Do you remember Mike Nolan and Jim Tom Sula 2020? No former players followed them to the Cowboys, and that unit finished dead last in almost every defensive category. I think that could be a red flag. I mean, you're telling me nobody from your past is excited to join you with the Dallas Cowboys? Okay, so maybe you don't know who the right guys are, or worse, maybe the front office talked to you about those guys and they were like, holy crap, these guys don't know what the hell we're talking about. We're not signing any of them. Okay, now, do you remember our old buddy, Monty Kiffin? Man, Monty Kiffin was great. He was 72 going on 52. He said he'd lived a life of football. He'd coached with Bud Grant. And recently he'd been at USC with his son. So it was not just a new DC. It was a fundamental change from the 3-4 to the 4-3 with an old guy who had been in college. They collapsed to one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and he was demoted a year later. All right. Rest in peace. Let me throw a salute to Rob Ryan as well, because he has the best hells in football history. And he brought in Kenyon Coleman, Abe Elam, Leon Washington, did help the Cowboys kind of fix what had been a horrible defense in 2010 and 2011. They were much better, middle of the pack. And he introduced the organization to Matt Eberflus, who was his linebackers coach at the time, and absolute rising stars. Okay, so those guys were not great hires. But you know who was? If you're watching the screen, you know where I'm going already because I previewed there. Rod Marinelli. He proved with limited resources for 6 seasons he could do a pretty good job. But he brought in Henry Melton from Chicago, former Pro Bowler, 3-technique defensive tackle. Steve Dennis explained it at camp in 2014 here, working for DallasCowboys.com.
Defensive coordinator Rod Marinelli taught Melton how to be his under tackle in Chicago. It's Marinelli that wanted him here.
It's more of a thought process. It's more of a disposition than a position.
No, I don't understand. I do not understand.
And he's got to be a disruptor. He's got to force the offense to pay attention to where he's at.
Okay, that we understand.
And he did. Gave him 5 sacks in 15 games before tearing his ACL. Dallas improved from 26th to 15th in total defense with that pressure up the middle. The guy knew what the Cowboys needed, and he had the relationships to deliver at a pretty terrific price point. Not pocket watching, but that's the facts. Okay, when new Cowboys coaches get this right, it proves they can look at the film from their new team, the Cowboys, identify what the Cowboys need, and actually find a guy that can fit. You have to have a lot of skills for that. And by the way, the Cowboys lean on their coaches to scout more than other teams. And of course, with the Cowboys, it also means doing it very inexpensively. Not enough pie, right? So if this works, it is almost usually a harbinger of good things to come. Now, speaking of that, Dan Quinn, 2021. I'm going to take a slight detour here. Okay, the Cowboys jumped from 28th to 7th in total defense. They led the NFL in takeaways. Now, they did, of course, draft Micah Parsons, which was tremendous. But Dan Quinn is also the guy who decided to put him on the edge instead of inside linebacker, proving the tremendous competency when looking at players and seeing his own vision, which is what you need to be better at plugging holes than your competition. However, this video is, of course, not about Micah Parsons, even though it kind of helps prove my point. It is about who Dan Quinn brought in from his former team, the Atlanta Falcons. Before Parsons was even drafted, Dan Quinn had found one, Dante Fowler, and he'd also reunited with DeMonte KZ and safety Keanu Neal. Fowler was tremendous in 23 in a limited role. The safeties were, of course, not elite, but they played fast and fit, and great safety positioning is a must if you plan on leading the league in takeaways. Now, the next coach and another example of when it didn't work, Mike Zimmer, he was next up after Quinn in 2024. Zimmer brought in 4 former guys, including one of our favorite guys in the GBag Nation, Eric Kendricks. But out of the 4, only Kendricks was solid. And he couldn't get anybody else to buy in, and he definitely did not fix the run defense. Linval Joseph, Nick Vigil had their moments, couldn't fix the run defense. Dalvin Cook was kind of just another washed-up player. My bad. Team buy-in, though, didn't happen. Transition to a new coach was disconnected. Zimmer had the trust of the Cowboys, but 3 years away from the league might have dulled his eye for talent, and he's never been that much of a buddy-buddy. So all that, of course, brings us right here to 2025. Is this the X factor? And if so, can Matt Eberflus and his new staff be right about the guys they brought in? And could this be the thing that fixes the Cowboys' biggest weakness, the run defense, faster than it's expected? Okay, let's jump into some Jack Sanborn here. Kind of poor man Sean Lee vibes, if you will. And he played for Eberflus and linebackers coach Dave Borgonzi, who came with him to Dallas in Chicago. High IQ, sure tackler, physical at the point of attack, not flashy, but he is very dependable. I mean, just look at him right there, just knifing through. He has tremendous instinct. Solomon Thomas, okay, the new defensive lineman. He's coming home, by the way, from Arlington, so congrats to him and his family. He reunites with defensive line coach Aaron Whitecotton, who got the best out of him with the Jets. Look at the day. Ever see a Cowboys defensive lineman do that? Other than, Tank and Micah. He's smart, he's versatile, he's gritty, he can play the 3 technique and play on the edge as well, gives you some run stopping juice inside. And